you considered a run for governor of California, then decided against it. What went into each of these decisions? And broadly, I just have maybe a selfish question about Silicon Valley. Is it over as a world leader for new tech companies? As this beacon of promise of young minds stepping in and creating something that changes the world? I don't know if those two questions are connected.
So it's not over, but I think it's definitely, we're in a challenging moment because, so back to that analogy of the demographics, if you think about if you bucketed, forget like our relative successes, but there's a bunch of us in this mid 50s to mid 30s cohort of people that have now been around, for 20 years, 15 years to 25 years that have done stuff, right? From Andreessen to Zuck to Jack Dorsey, et cetera, Elon, whatever. Maybe you throw me in the mix, David Sachs, whatever, okay? None of us have done a really good job of becoming a statesman or a stateswoman, and really showing a broad empathy and awareness for the broader systems. So if Silicon Valley is to survive as a system, we need to know that we've transitioned from move fast and break things to get to the right answer and take your time if that's what it means. And so we have to be a participant of the system. And I believe that. And I think that it's important to not be a dilettante and not be thumbing your face to Washington or not push the boundaries and say, we'll deal with it after the fact, but to work with folks that are trying to do the best, again, steelman their point of view,
Work with them, potentially run for office. So potentially understand the system.
Be a part of their system.
It makes me sad that there's no tech people or not many tech people in Congress and certainly not in the presidential level, not many governors or senators.
Well, I think that we also have roughly, our rules will never allow some of the best and brightest folks to run for president because of just the rules against it. But, if
oh, you mean, yeah.
I mean, look, I think David Sachs would be an incredible presidential candidate. Now, I also think he'd be a great governor. No, he was born in South Africa. I think he'd be a great governor. I think he'd be a great Secretary of State. I mean, he'd be great at whatever he wanted to do. Friedberg, wasn't born here. So there's a lot of people that could contribute at different levels. And I hope that, by the way, the other thing I like about the pod is I also think it helps normalize tech a little bit because you just see normal people dealing with normal situations. And I think that that's good. It is a really normative place. It's not the caricature that it's made out to be, but there is a small virulent strain of people that make it caricature-like.
Well, that's in one direction. What do you think about the whole culture of, I don't know if better terms, but woke activism? So sort of activism, which in some contexts is a powerful and important thing, but infiltrating companies.
I'll answer this in the context of Rene Girard. So he says that people tend to copy each other. And then when they're copying each other, they're really what they're doing is they're fighting over some scarce resource. And then you find a way to organize against, the group of you against a person or a thing that you think is the actual cause of all of this conflict, and you try to expel them. The thing that wokeism doesn't understand is that unless that person is truly to blame, the cycle just continues. And, that was a framework that he developed that, he's really conclusively proven to be true, and it's observable in humanity, in life. So these movements, I think, the extreme left and the extreme right, are trying to interpret a way to allow people to compete for some scarce resource. But I also think that in all of that, what they don't realize is that they can scapegoat whoever they want, but it's not going to work because the bulwark of people in the middle realize that it's just not true.
They realize, but they're still, because in leadership positions, there's still momentum and they still scapegoat and they continue. And it seems to hurt the actual
Well, it
ability of
was
those
much
companies to be
more,
successful.
but
helped
in fairness, though, if you had to graph the effectiveness of that function, it's decaying rapidly. It's the least effective it's ever been. You're absolutely right. Being canceled 5 years ago was a huge deal. Today, I think it was Jordan Peterson on your podcast. He said, I've been canceled and it was amazing. He said 38 times or 40. He said some number, which was a ginormous number, A, that he kept account of it, and B, was able to classify it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what classifier is going on in his mind where he's like, that's an attempt to cancel me, but this one is not. But my point is, well, it's clearly not working. And so the guy is still there and the guy is, putting his view out into the world. And so it's not to judge whether what he says is right or wrong. It's just to observe that this mechanism of action is now weakened. But it's weakened because it's not the thing that people think is really to blame.